guys. We're going to hold it there because we're going to switch game. I've got a nice video to play. First of all, these guys are going to be coming back, so we're not going to say goodbye to them yet. Very important video. He's going to be on the stream later, a guy called the Retro Nurse, all the way in the States, and he is going to... He caught up with me to do an interview to talk about his battles with mental health, and it's an absolute fantastic interview. It's his battle with mental health as well. So I'm going to flick to that. You guys watch that while we set up the next game and get stuff underway, and we'll be back very, very soon. While we all feel sad, moody, or low from time to time, some people experience these feelings intensely for long periods of time, weeks, months, or even years, and sometimes without any apparent reason. Depression is more than just a low mood, it's a serious condition that affects physical and mental health. Today, a good friend of mine from across the globe, all the way in the US of A, the Retro Nurse, is battling against the blues today and has agreed to open up about his battles with anxiety and depression here in front of the cameras, which is already a huge step. Man, I have to commend you for coming forward and taking a massive step in opening up about this, dude. I can't be more thankful, and you know, it's just important to be able to talk about it openly. People find it hard to do this, so for you to put your hand up and say, "Hey, man, I'm in. Let's chat," I appreciate it.
Hey, well, I know we've talked on this topic before, but I do try to be really open with my struggles because of the community that I come from. For those of you who've seen me in his videos before, you may not know this. I probably about, 5 years ago now, got out of the United States Marine Corps. So a lot of my friends and me myself deal with depression and anxiety, PTSD, a lot of those issues. We have lost a lot of our guys to it. We actually did not lose anyone while we were in. We were very lucky in that regard, but we've lost more to the battle outside of war and all of that than we actually did during the war. So it's a huge issue in our community. So
I was going to say as well, because when you talk about anxiety and depression, that a lot of people do have PTSD, and I don't know anyone that's gone through what you've gone through in that regard. Because you've spoken to me in parts of your background when we first started speaking, like over a year ago, and no one that I know that would be part of the stream or has decided to, speak out would come from that aspect.
Well, I actually consider myself very lucky. My first deployment was on a MU, a Marine Expeditionary Unit. So I essentially just got to float around and see cool countries. The other half of my unit actually went to Afghanistan, and they were the Battle of Bastion in Afghanistan. So they spent days getting rocketed, and luckily no one died, but at the same time, when you go through that kind of stuff does stick with you. So there are a lot of guys that we had, and I'm not going to mention any names in this stream, just out of respect for the people that I worked with who became pretty much like my family. But of course, I do know that a lot of them do deal with they dealt with some major PTSD, major depression, and the worst part of it was we sort of had this, like, especially in the Marine Corps, this machismo culture of, like, we're the biggest, baddest people, but, like, then you go home or something, and suddenly you're alone with your thoughts, and, like, you have trouble talking to your significant others about it because you feel like, well, I'm a man, I should be able to deal with this. This isn't that big of a deal. This is what I was trained for. And, like, this goes even beyond, like, just what I dealt with what I deal with or like what my friends deal with, I know it's a big culture for guys is like to not speak out about it when you're feeling sad, to kind of like not show emotion.
I mean, when did you first discover that, or that you had, you know, mental health problems? Like, when did you first find that you had some issues?
We knew I was having issues back in high school. I have ADHD, and part of ADHD is you feel stuff generally more like stronger than other people tend to.
Yeah.
So when I was in high school, I was cutting.
Oh wow.
I contemplated suicide a lot, and like I didn't know what to do, and that lasted all the way up into my first semester at college, and then it just took one thing to set me off, and that one thing was I crashed my car on the way to college one morning, and suddenly didn't have any way to get to college, and like didn't want to ask anyone for help. I just ended up like staying at my friend's house and drinking a lot. And there was a certain point where it was like, I just need to do something. So I went and I joined the Marines.
Dude, I just have to thank you so much for being so open, man. Is there any last words you want to leave anyone with? Any advice you want to give for anyone that's suffering or anything like that, man? Any advice you've got?
The biggest advice I can give is something I found out from my squadron really pulling together after we had a couple deaths, is that find a community to share and help with, and find people who have gone through what you've gone through and maybe get some ideas on ways to cope with it, was the biggest help to me. Recognize bad things not bad things, God, what am I thinking? Bad coping mechanisms that you're using, like drinking, reckless spending, stuff like that. Recognize them and confront them. I know it's hard. I really do. It was the hardest thing in the world for me to like just stop drinking and stop spending my paychecks immediately and stuff like that. But when you start to get like a little better and a little better and a little better, because you're never going to be perfect at it, and you're never going to be cured. That's not what this is. But you will come through and you'll be like, I am feeling better. Like hopefully that was like, I'm through the worst of it. And think bad things will happen. Just try your hardest not to fall back. But if you do, you're not starting from scratch. You always have the healthy coping mechanisms that you'll have learned. You're never starting from scratch again. Just because you kind of relapse into the thinking does not mean you're starting from scratch. Do not lose hope. Reach out to somebody. Just talk to someone. That's the biggest thing. No one wants to lose you.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate you taking the time. I really do.
I was happy to do it anytime.
Alright, man. Well, we're going to head back to the stream. Retro Nurse, applauding you, buddy, for coming. and we'll hopefully see you on the stream.
I hope to be there.
Gotcha, man.